Officials in Missouri conclude an administrative hearing that will determine if the state's health department can revoke the license for Missouri's last abortion facility. The hearing before a commissioner with the Missouri Administrative Hearing Commission concerned what the state health department described as 4 failed abortions and other violations of state laws at Planned Parenthood's St. Louis clinic. Planned Parenthood accused the state of trying to use the licensing process to target the abortion facility. The commission's ruling is expected in February of next year. The St. Louis abortion facility remains open, pending the ruling. Joining us now is Susan Klein, Executive Director and Legislative Liaison at Missouri Right to Life. Susan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gracie, for having me on the program today.
Susan, what are some of the issues with this particular abortion facility?
The St. Louis Planned Parenthood has had multiple infractions over many years, and our Department of Health has been following those. And in the last several years, they've had over 30 infractions that the Department of Health has reported. Over 70 ambulances have been called there, and our Department of Health has just really been following that facility because we know that women's lives are at risk there.
And what are some particular instances that your group has seen where this facility has failed to meet basic standards?
There's been some ambulances that have been called. Some have not been reported. There's been complications with abortions, and those have not been reported to our Department of Health. The last issues that really came to light are 4 abortions, failed abortions, where women had to go back and have multiple visits, follow-up visits, and multiple procedures done, which put their lives at risk even more. So because of that, our Department of Health refused to issue a license for them, and then the court has got involved in that and allowed them to stay open without a license in the state of Missouri.
While we await a ruling in this case, the Planned Parenthood facility is permitted to remain open. What's your message to Missouri women about this facility?
Well, we encourage women to go to any other facilities like the federally qualified health centers or our state departments of health. Those clinics are licensed by the state. They have oversight. There's good care there, and we just encourage them to go and get their care at a facility that has some oversight from our Department of Health. We know that there's safer care there than there is at this facility.
Supporters of Planned Parenthood have argued that the clinic is being targeted. How would you respond to that argument?
Well, our Department of Health watches over and has oversight, and they do inspections of all medical facilities in the state of Missouri. So they're not being targeted because, because they do abortions. They are following and having to follow the same guidelines as every other medical facility in the state. So our Department of Health is doing a great job in inspecting these facilities, and it's just, it's just something that is done every year. So they're not being targeted. They have said that, they are, but obviously if they've got infractions that are happening there, that what is happening at their facility can only be laid at their feet. They have a responsibility to the women that walk into that clinic, and our Department of Health expects them to receive good care, and they are not doing that.
And how can the pro-life movement best support pregnant women in Missouri?
Well, we have been involved with making sure that women get good information about what happens when they go in for an abortion. We make sure that people are able to walk and pray on the sidewalk in front of these abortion clinics. We make sure that our pregnancy resource centers have good information. They have good financial support. So getting involved with organizations like Missouri Right to Life, when we stand unified, we really stand to help women get the care that they need and be a voice for those who don't have a voice. So I would say get involved with us for sure, but there are other groups in Missouri as well, but Missouri Right to Life is kind of leading out in this, and we just encourage you to get involved.
Susan Klein, Executive Director and Legislative Liaison at Missouri Right to Life. Thank you for joining us, Susan.
Thank you, Gracie, for having me on the program today.
Joining us now in studio is Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications at the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you for being here, Mallory.
It's great to be here, Gracie.
Mallory, how would you respond to pro-abortion advocates who say that the facility in Missouri is being targeted, and why should it lose its license?
Yes, well, I think we just need to look at the facts. An ambulance has been called to this particular facility 70 times since 2009. There's been numerous violations, failed abortions, including one instance where a woman had to go in for an abortion procedure 3 times before they finally succeeded in taking the life of her unborn child. That is not safe, obviously, for the child, but certainly not for the women. And I think whether it's a Planned Parenthood or an independent abortion clinic, the fact that it is the last one doesn't mean that there should be less regulation. If anything, it should mean more regulation to protect women and children from these unscrupulous providers. And the Department of Health is tasked with protecting women going into these facilities. So I think it's on the State Department of Health to make that call.
Exactly. And if this clinic does have its license revoked, Missouri would become the very first state without an abortion facility. What would that signify to you about the broader pro-life movement?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a couple of different states that are in the same position as Missouri right now. Kentucky, for example, is one of them where there's only one abortion facility left. And I think that this is reflective of the growing pro-life momentum. State legislators are passing laws that are reflective of the values of the people that elect them, and the state executive branch, these state departments of health, are really looking closely at abortion facilities. Perhaps in the wake of Kermit Gosnell in Philadelphia, we've seen an increased look on the part of the states to say we don't want to repeat what happened in Philadelphia. So I think that it reflects the growing trend towards pro-life. All the gains that have been made culturally, politically, and certainly just us as a movement being able to better respond to the needs of women and children.
Mallory, in my own medical practice, I've had to adhere to strict regulation and oversight in order to ensure patient safety properly, no?
Yes.
Why are abortion facilities often ignored by regulators?
Yes, well, the number that comes to mind is, 18 years that Kermit Gosnell's facility went uninspected. The State Department of Health in Philadelphia said, we're not going to touch this abortion clinic. And it was a pro-abortion Republican governor, Tom Ridge, who said that monitoring these facilities would impede a woman's access to abortion. So I think that there's certainly politics has something to do with it. And when we have these pro-abortion administrations, they don't want to look into what their allies in the abortion lobby are doing, because on the political side of things, they can have come to rely on support from the pro-abortion movement. And the minute that they actually try and execute health and safety standards to protect women and children, they won't like what they'll find.
Mm-hmm. If the clinic doesn't lose its license, what do you think Missouri lawmakers should do to protect the health and safety of women?
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine something more that Missouri lawmakers could do. They've done such a fantastic job really throwing in the kitchen sink to the bill that passed in the most recent legislative session. This is a very strongly pro-life state. They've passed a limit on abortion after 20 weeks, after 16, after 6. And disability discrimination abortions have been banned, and really a lot of that legislation is being tied up by the court right now. So I think that it's a wait-and-see approach to see how the court's going to rule. But one thing that state lawmakers perhaps should consider is, how do we address the fact now that Planned Parenthood and the abortion lobby is setting up these regional hubs? For example, just across the border in Illinois, there's, of course, this Planned Parenthood mega center that's being set up. That's something that perhaps other state lawmakers are going to need to address, and something that even needs to be looked at the federal level. But I'd say that the Missouri state legislature and the pro-life officials in the executive branch are doing such a fantastic job.
Indeed. And I also wanted to get your opinion, Mallory, on another major story.
Yes.
A federal judge blocked Alabama's pro-life law from going into effect. What are the next steps for that law?
Right. Well, I believe now that the state attorney general has 30 days or less, I believe, to appeal that ruling and fight this. Now, Alabama, a lot's been said about Alabama, but when you ask the people have had 2 opportunities in the last 18 months to say where they stand on life. Not only did the state lawmakers who were just elected in 2018 pass that very strong pro-life law that's in question, but in 2018, there was a ballot initiative where a majority of Alabamians voted to say, we're going to recognize the right to life for the unborn in the state constitution. So they've been very strong as a state, and Governor Kay Ivey, a very strong pro-life woman, she said that she hopes the Attorney General will appeal the ruling, and certainly we hope so as well, and look forward to seeing more action on that in the coming weeks.
Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications at the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thank you.